if you want to turn to page 47 in your Barron book. Today we're going to review the AP scoring rubric, so how your AP essays are going to be graded. And then you guys are going to become the graders. There are 3 essays that are real release essays from past exams, and you guys are going to read them and evaluate them based on what score you think they deserve. So first, let's start with how the essays are scored. You can just follow along on page 46. Let's start with Jessica Z and just read a paragraph, and then we'll go around the room.
All right. Essays are scored by highly trained and experienced high school and college English teachers. Each of your essays is scored by a different reader who knows neither your name, school, gender, or anything else about you. Nor does the reader know the score you earned on other essays or on the multiple choice questions. Some essays are reread by so-called table reader, whose job is to ensure that all essays are evaluated fairly and uniformly.
Each essay will receive a grade from 0 words to 9 facts based on your reader's judgment of the essay as a whole. High scores will be your reward for doing everything well. Exceptionally good writing may compensate for a mediocre analysis and raise the score from, say, a 6 to a 7. But a badly written essay, no matter how insightful, is destined to earn a score no higher than 3. Should the grades assigned by the 2 evaluators differ by 2 or more points, the essay will be submitted to a third reader.
Because each question is different, the criteria for evaluating them are different too. But the descriptions that follow apply generally to the 3 types of essays found in the exam.
All right, let's pause right there. So so far the grading process make sense? So there are typically 2 graders, and then if there is a major discrepancy between what one grader assigns and the other, a third party will be invited in to assign another point grade. So obviously the higher the score, the better the essay. I want to draw your attention to the part where it says exceptionally good writing may compensate for a mediocre analysis and raise the score from a 6 to a 7. But a badly written essay, no matter how insightful, is destined to earn a score no higher than a 3. So obviously we all hope to write a grammatically correct and insightful essay with good analysis, but you need to keep in mind that even if you misinterpret the prompt or analyze or interpret it, the poem or the question differently than what the intent of the correct answer would be, if you still formulate a strong written response, you can still get a good grade, a higher point. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so let's start reading through the actual scores, because I think it'll help knowing some tangible skills that are assigned to each one of these scores. So let's start with Heaven for 9 to 8.
These well-organized essays address the question astutely. The writer, using relevant and specific references to the text, convincingly develops a valid thesis. Perceptions of the literature are insightful and clearly expressed in language appropriate to literary criticism. The writer may also offer more than a single interpretation of a piece of literature or any of its parts. Although the essay may not be completely error-free, they demonstrate the writer's control of the elements of composition and the craft of analytical writing.
Good. Do we have any questions over that section? I also want to draw your attention to the writer may offer more than a single interpretation. So if you pick out a specific line, it's totally okay to say it could be interpreted this way, or perhaps it could be interpreted this way. But remember what I said with interpretations, you always, if you're going to state that claim, you need to have textual support and evidence to support it, okay? All right, let's move on to 7 to 6.
These essays contain solid, clearly expressed thesis, but the evidence provided for its development and support may fall short of excellence. The analysts of the literature, while thoughtful, may not be thorough or altogether precise, or the discussion may lack the depth of insight or persuasiveness found in very best essays. Although the essays give evidence of the student's ability to read and respond sensitively to literature, they are not as mature, sophisticated, and controlled as papers that deserve ratings of 8 or 9.
Good. So what do they mean when they say mature, sophisticated, and controlled? Jessica?
Organized, I guess, and it has well written sentence structure.
Good. Organized, sentence structure, a flow that makes sense, strong thesis statement that's carried out through the rest of the paper.
And evidence that supports it.
Strong evidence that supports your claims. Good. And also word choice, diction, all of that. I mean, we talked about, and when I've given you feedback on some of your, whether they be outlines, short response essays, when I say word choice or diction, as well as Miss H, instead of saying like a lot or very, you need to make sure it's appropriate for the type of essay you're writing. Correct? All right, let's move on to score 5.
These essays respond to the assignment but offer little more than conditional observations of the literature. Their analysis, while mostly accurate, may suffer from superficiality and a lack of conviction. Support of these theses may be vague or limited. The text of these essays may accurately convey the student's thought but may contain a number of mechanical writing errors, none so severe, however, to a skilled reader.
Good. And in that they mean, commas, improperly using semicolons, colons, stuff, things like that. Okay? All right. Score 4-3, Jane.
Essays in this range often attempt to address the question, but do so only marginally. Possibly because the writer has either misread the literature or misunderstood the prescribed text. Essays may include a thesis, but supporting material drawn from the text. The text is eager or inexact, as for literary analysis is vague and unconvincing, or it may rely largely on paraphrase. The writing in these essays is sufficiently clear to convey meaning, but it might suffer from lack of coherence, weak diction, faulty sentence structure, and a variety of mechanical errors.
Good. So when it says rely largely on paraphrase, what does it mean?
You're not getting text from you're just paraphrasing the text, you're not using direct quotes.
Good. You're not pulling directly. Yeah, did you have? Was that
I was going to
say the same thing? Okay, Shane.
You basically just restate what it says, but they'll interpret.
Good. Yeah. So you're just summarizing the passage or the excerpt. You're not really analyzing anything. Remember how when we did TP Cast, we learned the difference between summarizing and paraphrasing, and you want to get into deep analysis of what is being said and why, as opposed to just summarizing for your reader what's actually literally happening in the poem, story, what have you. Okay? Alright, let's go to weak essays, score 2-1.
Failure to respond adequately to the question places an essay into this category. Thus, an essay consisting largely of plot summary may earn a 2. The same applies to essays on which confused or incoherent literary analysis demonstrates the writer's inability to comprehend the literature, and to essays that reveal minimal understanding of composition and the conventions of standard written English. Essays that are particularly devoid of content or coherence are scored 1.
Good. Jessica, do you want to finish this up?
No response or response completely off the topic. Based on the evaluations of 3 essays, you will earn a score between 0 and 27 in section 2 of the exam. Let's hope this book will help you skew your score toward the high end of the range. The College Board won't report that score. Rather, using a complicated formula, it will convert the score to a number on the 8-5-point scale. The arithmetic calculations are of no compelling interest to most students, but if you're eager to know, check the technical corner of the website, collegeboard.org/AP.
Okay, good. So, are there any questions on how scoring the essays will go when you take your AP test? Make sense? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. with the complicated formula that no one knows, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. So, like I said, you guys are going to read the question at the bottom of 47. That's the prompt that they were given. We will read that aloud together in a moment. On the next page, 48, is the actual passage these students were given. And then over the next few pages, you'll see 3 essays that were actually released. They were real life essays from the real AP exam. And you're going to, don't read, try really hard, it's going to be tempting. Don't read the comment from the AP reader, who is the grader, because it actually tells you what's good and bad about it and assigns a score. But that's what you guys want to do, so don't read that. So all 3 of these essays, you're going to assign a score from 1 to 9 based off of what we just went over. But whatever score you give it, you're going to have to support it with comments, and you're going to include their strengths and weaknesses. So if you give something a 9, you can't just say, this sounded pretty, or you used really long, impressive words. Give us some short bullet point strengths and weaknesses that back up whatever score you're assigning. Okay? And you're going to do that for all 3 essays. So let's go back to the bottom of page 47. Before we read the prompt together, are there any questions over the assignment? Okay, and you guys can work in the small groups that you normally work in. Okay, so the question on the bottom of page 47, the prompt is, read the following poem carefully, then write a well-organized essay in which you analyze how the poet's language, along with such poetic devices as diction, sound, rhyme, and meter, conveys the speaker's attitude toward the taking of human life by hanging. So then on page 48, that's the actual passage, the poem, or I'm sorry, the excerpt, and then, and then you're just gonna go ahead, read that, and then grade the essay responses, okay? And I would encourage you to go back to the prompt and the poem each time before every new essay to just refresh your memory. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions? All right, you can go ahead and get started.